I'm Rick Lewis with Phenom Hoop Report. On today's segment of Coach's Corner, I have Coach Bradley Gabriel of Lincoln Charter. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you for having me, Rick. Good to be here.
Coach, a lot of people don't realize this, but you were quite the player back in the day. You played at Bandys High School, and you played for two Hall of Fame coaches. You played for Mike Matheson and also Bill Boss.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the quite the player, but I could play a little bit. Bandys High School at that time when we came through in the early 80s and early 90s, we were a basketball school. And, I got the I guess the honor or the luck of playing for two Hall of Fame coaches. First of all, Bill Balls, just amazing motivator. I played for him my freshman and sophomore year, but the thing with Bill Balls that I think I kind of have in my coaching repertoire today is the fact that he believed in us. He let you play. If you could shoot a three, well, at that time they didn't put threes until my sophomore year, but if you could shoot it, shoot it. If you could put it in the hole, put it in the hole. But he just had an amazing, anybody that played for him will kind of testify to this. He just had an amazing way of believing in you and getting the best out of you. And so, I got to experience, 2 years with him. And then, Mike Matheson rolled in my junior and senior year, another Hall of Fame girls coach at that time. And got really the X and O part of the side of basketball, the mental part of basketball. We knew we could play basketball, but he brought us together for like the team concept and this is how you win. You got to win more with your mind and the X's and O's. So, yeah, I went to Bandys, put up some numbers at Bandys. I had an opportunity to play college ball, which, was really grateful for. But I think my experience of playing with those two kind of impacted my coaching ability today. And I wish I would have had a better opportunity or more of an opportunity to spend with them outside. But unfortunately, both of them passed away, within 2 to 3 years after I graduated high school. So I never really got to pick their brains outside of just being a player for them. But very blessed to have been a part of Bandys during that time when basketball was kind of the king of that area. And so, but yeah, just real blessed to kind of be a part of both of those two guys.
Coach, when you played for both of them, did you have any understanding how good they were, that they were going to be Hall of Fame coaches in North Carolina?
Well, when we played, it was kind of at the end of Coach Boss's career. So we kind of knew who he was. I remember, when I was growing up as a kid, going to Bandy's basketball games and watching Bill Boss on the sidelines. And I'll never forget, I think what made me want to play basketball is I was at halftime of these games, they allowed kids to go on the court and shoot basketball.
Right.
And I'll never forget running into Coach Boss, and he knew my name. I don't know how, but he knew who I was. He gave me a ball in the corner as he was walking off the court, and he said, stick this. And I shot it and hit it. And he said, you're going to be special one day. I can't wait to coach you. And so, that I knew who he was, but that was kind of Bill Balls. I mean, he just had an unbelievable knack for believing in people and getting them to play at probably above, their playing ability. But we kind of knew who Coach was, and it was a blessing to kind of play for him on his kind of way out. And we already knew Mike Matheson. I mean, we were just excited and giddy to have someone to go from Bill Balls to Mike Matheson was the best of both worlds. And so we kind of knew what we were in store for, but we really didn't know what to expect as players until we got in coaching sessions and really saw how different those two guys were. Bill Balls, I always laugh at people because they think that we had such tough practices and this and that, but Bill Boss believed in us so much that we did 2-line layups. We had to hit 20 from each side. If you missed, you ran a lap, you started over, and then he played a 2-3 zone. And in practice, all we did was scrimmage for about 2 hours, and that was a practice. But he had us believing that we were so good that that's all we needed. And then in comes Coach Matheson with his, drills and skill development and all that stuff, and really honing in on our team concept of this is how you're going to win. And I just feel blessed to kind of have a lot of people take that for granted. I never did. I knew exactly who Bill Boss was and Mike Matheson, what they stood for. And probably why I played so hard to kind of – I didn't want to let them down, so to speak. And I think that was all of our guys. We just didn't want to we didn't want to be that team that wasn't successful for either one of them. So we kind of knew what was in store for us.
Well, Coach, you hit an interesting point there. Isn't it amazing when you have a coach that believes in you as a player? In return, you don't want to let them down, and you play extremely hard for them.
Exactly, and I try to model that. I'm nothing near what Coach Boss and Coach Matheson was as a coach, but I try to give my kids the same belief. And in return, those kids don't want to let our program down. And I think that's probably why some of the success we've had or I've had over time is, my belief in the kids and in return, they just play hard and don't want to let you down or don't want to, be that person that's interfering with the program or success. So I just know that worked for us, and I didn't want to be that team or that person to let either one of those coaches down. And so we, it kind of rolls in today's world. But yeah, it holds true for both ways. And I've been blessed with great kids, but I've also been blessed with kids that kind of have that same mindset of not wanting to let the programs down.
Now, Coach, when you played at Bandys, you were a two-sport star. You played football. You made All-State as a quarterback, and you also played free safety. Yeah. On the basketball side, you had a great career there. You had 1,600 career points. Yeah. How difficult is it for today's young player to specialize in two sports the way you did?
That's a good question. I get that all the time about, and we get it so early now that, kids in the 6th grade, 7th grade, their parents are asking us, should we specialize in this? And my answer is, if you can play sports, play them, enjoy them, and be good at them. I'm not one to tell a kid that, I don't give advice on whether to play one sport or two sports. But in my case, and when I grew up, we grew up in a little different era where, especially at a little 2A school where your athletes played all sports. So it was necessary to have all of them, almost like it is at a 1A school in today's world. But it worked for me. I think, obviously it helps, if you play football, you're a little tougher, have a little tougher mindset. You can bring that on the basketball court. Helps your hand-eye coordination, your core training, stuff like that. Basketball rolls in. I mean, they just kind of work hand in hand. So, in today's world, the competition, you have your handlers, you have your travel coaches, you have your high school coaches, you have your parents, and everybody telling you you better specialize in one sport because of the competition level is so and they're right. It is tough out there, but to tell a kid that he should specialize in one sport or not, I've never been that kind of guy. I'm always going to tell them to play multiple sports because I think it helps. I think it also showcases your talent, your athleticism, and your competitiveness in other sports. So yeah, it worked for me. I always see football players that I'm like, oh my goodness, I wish they'd play basketball. Right. And I'm sure football coaches see basketball players, oh my goodness, wonder how good they would be in football. So, it's tough in today's world where you got all these people telling you to specialize in one area. But I think if a kid can play and express himself athleticism wise on football, baseball, soccer, whatever they play, I think they should do it and not worry about things. Because if you can play if you're a Division I athlete, you're a Division I athlete. Right. They're going to find you. They're going to put you where they want you to. So I think it's a good thing for kids to play multiple sports. I did it. It didn't interfere with I had offers in football, and I had D1 offers in football, and I had D1 offers in basketball. So it didn't impact me. But in today's world where we're told to what to do and how to do it sometimes, and the best, I'm never going to tell a kid to focus on one area, but we've had kids to do that. I mean, Levante Knox is probably He graduated 2 years ago. He's probably the best athlete I've ever had in my life. He could have gone and played soccer and got a Division I offer, or football and baseball. I mean, he was a heck of a baseball. Cody Schubert was probably one of the best baseball players coming up. And they chose to focus after their 8th grade year to focus on basketball, not to my doings. It was just something they wanted to do. But anyway, I mean, it's a tough call. But I think the more you showcase your athleticism, the better.
Well, also playing multiple sports, you're also using more muscles. And
right.
If you just concentrate on one sport, you use the same muscles over and over.
Right.
And,
yeah.
If you think back, when we were playing, we played multiple sports. It didn't seem like we had all the injuries that you have nowadays.
No, that is true. But, I remember watching the Michael Jordan special, and, he's saying that he was not basketball ready because he was baseball ready.
Absolutely.
And he wanted to avoid the injury. So, you're right. It takes different muscles and whatnot. So, but yeah, back then we played everything. So I don't remember people being as injury prone as they are in today's world. And that's probably a lot to do with it.
Now, after you graduated from Bandys, you had a chance to play collegiately, and you went to Montreat University. And your freshman year, you averaged right at 10 points a game. And then your sophomore year, you averaged right at 20 points a game.
Right.
So at that point in time, you decided to make a coaching change, playing change at that time. You decided to transfer to Western Carolina. What was the thought process in regard to that? And how did that experience you can use to relate to young players today?
Yeah. I always say if I had it to do over again, I would have just trusted my initial instinct of staying and enjoying where I was at. I love Montreat. I had opportunities to go bigger out of college. I had opportunities to go play football at Tennessee and NC State and all that. But for some reason, I chose basketball. And I love the competition of it. I love the immediate competition of offense to defense, and it's continuous. So I'm a competitive person. But, I really worked hard my freshman year to get on the court. It took me about 8 games to finally get to start, but I kept working, and I persevered and overcome that. And then the next year I was pretty much the leader of our team and the scoring option. But not only the scoring option, I guarded the best player on the other team. That was just who I was at that time. But, I let some people, think, the grass is greener on the other side, so to speak. I know that's a cliche, but it's true. We all think that there's bigger and better things out there for us. And I thought to get it more exposure, I needed to go D1 like I initially probably should have. So I made the change to go to Western Carolina, and then I spoke to Coach Benny Deese. He was coming from Wyoming at that time, and I had no clue that he was bringing a guy with him named Frankie King. For those that don't know Frankie King, he led the nation in scoring, NCAA in scoring 2 years in a row at 36 and 37 a game. Got drafted by the Lakers in round 1 of 17th pick. So had no clue he was playing the same position I was playing. And so, I just kind of didn't want to go through that, didn't know all that. And once I got there, got a little angry and kind of self-absorbed and selfish again because I was playing 30 minutes a game and, probably going to be somewhat of a all-region or all-American probably going into my junior year at Montreat. But a little bit of arrogance kind of took me out of the game. And so I decided to step away. Those are life lessons. I didn't have anybody telling me otherwise. I had to learn on my own. But I would tell people, or especially young kids in today, choose a school, choose a college that fits you and
right.
fits your needs. Don't worry about what people think that you should go, whether it's Division I, Division II, NAIA, Division III, JUCO, whatever it is. Go somewhere that fits your needs. And, I remember playing at Montreat and us playing East Tennessee State, UNC Asheville, Lipscomb, people like that. And I had no problems with their guards. Matter of fact, I had my better game. So your game translates at no matter what level it is. Right. And that holds true even in today's world. So go somewhere where you're wanted, that fits your game and whatnot. And the grass is not always greener on the other side. Matter of fact, when you start transferring, that's when problems can arise, because you're going into the unknown. Some people are already established. I always tell kids, when you transfer, the kids are not going to transfer out. They're going to fight for their spot. So you're going in and fighting again. Right. So, there's all kinds of things that can arise from that. And, I always try to help kids out. I don't deter kids from transferring, but I would tell a kid, if you transfer, make sure it's a transfer for the right reasons and not the selfish reasons. And mine was selfish and self-driven, and it kind of backfired on me. I had chances to go overseas. I had chances to, do some things semi-pro wise. We didn't have the opportunities back then like we have today. But because I chose to step away from the game, I cut my network system out. So, things like that kind of hindered me. But, transferring is not for everyone. It definitely wasn't for me. And I learned the hard way. But, I never held anything against Frankie, and Coach Deese Frankie's probably one of the best guys I've ever met in my life, and rightfully so. He could play basketball. So, but it kind of stuck me in the face and hit me hard, but it was a learning experience that I share my story with kids today about how, when you go to college, make sure it's the right fit and stay there, be committed, through the thick and thin, and bust your butt and try to persevere and overcome, instead of just saying, well, I don't like this place, I'm out. So that would be my advice. I just hope kids learn from my mistakes, and I try to help them out.
Well, Coach, as competitive as you are as a player and as a coach, I know how competitive you are as a coach, and I'm sure you was equally that way as a player. And what a lot of young players don't understand is, no matter how good you are, if you're competitive, you want to play.
Right.
And a lot of young players make the mistake that I'm going to go play at the highest level. And sometimes when they go play at that highest level, they may be that 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th guy on the bench that doesn't get off and get the playing time. Right. And if you're a competitor and you love the game, most people aren't going to be very happy. And you hit the nail on the head when you said, go where you're wanted, go where you're needed, and go where they absolutely want you to there. And also you have the chance to have playing time, because at the end of the day, playing time makes us all happy.
Yeah, you're right. And that holds true for even every sport. Even in high school, we kind of sell our kids on, being a part of the program and finding where you fit in. It might not necessarily be the role of scoring 15 points a game. It might be the role of pushing that guy that's scoring 15 points a game. But, sometimes especially as a freshman, and I can honestly say this because when I went in, I was coming off of what I did in high school. I was pretty proud of everything I accomplished athletically, but going in as a freshman, not getting playing time, that really fueled me. Instead of me pouting or whatever, I just kind of wanted to fit in, and I asked the coach, what can I do to fit in? What can I do to play? What can I do? And so he said defense, obviously. So that's something I could control.
Right.
And 8 to 10 games into the season, I was starting because I embraced that role, and then it helped my other part of the game. So I didn't cry, I didn't pout, I didn't go tell everybody to feel sorry for me and tell my mom that the world's coming to an end. I didn't say all that. I just kind of embraced it, and I think kids need to do more of that in today's world, and especially when they go into college. It's not easy. I don't care what level you go to. I don't care how successful you are in high school. Making that transition into NAIA, into Division II, Division III is tough. And so don't give up and persevere. Don't transfer out so fast. Enjoy college life, enjoy pushing yourself, enjoy getting better. You may not get better on the court, but you might get better mentally. And the mental part will help you maybe in life when you're having problems in your marriage or your business is not doing great. Just being tough mentally and not giving up is kind of what kids and what I would say to kind of embrace on your journey in college and everything you do.
Now, Coach, in 1996, you graduated from college and you got your start in coaching by coaching youth travel ball
Yeah.
in Bandys. Talk about that.
Yeah. I wanted to coach, but I also wanted to make a little bit of money coming out of college. And back then, I graduated in English, and I was going to coach and teach English and all that, but they were only starting out at $19,000 a year, and I'm like, I need to make a little bit of money. So I was working in the corporate world, and we started a youth program, a travel team that kind of filters into the Bandys community. Because at that time, Bandys, when I left, that was kind of the last of the great teams, so to speak, and basketball. So we wanted to kind of get things going back. So we started a youth program that kind of filtered in Bandys High School to kind of help get the program back to where it needed to be. So we started from third grade all the way, I think we had up to ninth grade. And I was the coach, the president. We traveled around North Carolina. We didn't get into a lot of AAU stuff because we weren't an AAU program. We were kind of a USSSA team, or just local events here and there, just kind of get our kids understanding how to play basketball again, right, and enjoying basketball. So that kind of gave me the kind of desire to the competitiveness to be around on a daily basis, to enjoy basketball some more, because I was still playing competitively. I was still playing some semi-pro basketball and traveling to Charlotte and traveling to Greensboro and traveling to Atlanta and, still playing basketball and whatnot, and trying to keep those dreams alive of going overseas and all that stuff. But, the coaching aspect, that really kind of got my juices flowing again, because I realized I was pretty good at, delivering a message and coaching, and I started seeing Bill Boss come back out and really believing in the kids, and the kids were really feeding off of that. And so it just kind of hit me that, well, I might want to do some more of this. And so it was a great start for me. It got my love back of coaching and wanting to give back to the community, wanting to give back to the kids. And it wasn't about me. I figured out that, sometimes the best part of coaching or being in a leadership role is it's about everything else but you. And, right. And I learned that, coaching a bunch of third graders, fourth graders, and eighth graders. And it was the purity of the game, and I just enjoyed it again. So that was a good foundation for me.
In 1999, you became the assistant coach at Hopewell under right. Eric Davis, and that was a brand new school. Talk about your relationship with Eric and the lessons you learned as far as being an assistant coach and building a program at the new school.
Right. Well, at the time, it was pretty cool. It was pretty neat because, I was in the corporate office, and I had just gotten married. Our first child was on its way. And they were going to send me to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And we prayed about it. I'm sure my father-in-law would have probably not let his daughter and his grandchild go. But we prayed about it, and all of a sudden I got a phone call from my college roommate, Eric Davis, out of the blue, and said, "Hey, I just got the job at Hopewell. I'm going to see if you wanted to get back in it." And I was like, "Yeah." Now we took a pay cut, obviously, to get back into teaching and all that stuff, but probably the best move I've ever made in my life. And I thank Eric to this day for calling on me and thinking about me. But that's Eric. I mean, we've been tight. We're like brothers. A lot of people don't know that, but we were college roommates, and we shared a lot of good moments together, and we still, we talk 2 or 3 times a week, even though he's at the beach and I'm here at home. But working with Eric, man, we were both young guys, coaching a 4A team, probably the toughest conference in North Carolina. Yeah. And, we just found a lot about, each other. The great thing about Eric and I is, if you come into a gym, it's not I was working for Eric. I was working with Eric. Eric was working with me. And if you come into our gym, and I still hold true to that today, is if you come into our gym, you don't know who the head coach was.
Right.
And that's who we are. Eric was humble enough to say, hey, I don't know everything. What do you know? Let's put everything together and come up with a plan. So working with Eric was probably the most refreshing thing, because A, I was working with my best friend, and then B, I was learning a lot from how to treat people, how to work hard. Eric always told me, and I hold true to this today, is you don't, if you do the right thing, you never have to look over your shoulders. I share that on a daily basis. Any talk I say with our kids or anybody, and it holds true. If you just do the right thing, if you work hard, you hold kids accountable, you never have to worry about anything. So Eric's intense. Eric gets after it defensively. He just works his tail off, and I got that from Eric. And he and I together were pretty good. I mean, we probably won some games we had no business winning, but we were so young and we didn't even know. I'll never forget the night we won our first playoff game against Butler and had no business winning it. But we thought we were going to win a state championship after beating Butler that year, and then faced a Freedom team that was 28-0 at Freedom and had them beat until the kid hit a last-second three and went in overtime and lost. But that was who we were. We had success because we worked hard. And, I think I give thanks every day that Eric called me and I got a chance to work for 3 years beside Eric and learn from Eric. And again, we call each other every day. Eric's such a good friend that when they went on the regional run at Hopewell, I was sitting behind him. He called me to make sure I was there with him. When I won a state championship in 2017, Eric was right behind my bench, and he went in my locker room. And I told my guys I wouldn't be here without this man right here. And Eric's there with me through thick and thin. He's been by my side. He's been my rock. Somebody I lean on all the time, and he calls me, and we lean on each other. And my time at Hopewell, I revert back to all the time because, again, that's where I learned, how to treat people, how to work people, how to love people, how to build a family. And Eric was instrumental in that. And that's why he's had success everywhere he goes, at West Brunswick. Now he's at Laney. I mean, he takes that same mindset, and everywhere he's gone, he's built a really solid program on those principles. So I count my lucky stars. I got a chance to work with Eric.
Well, Coach, in 2004, that's the year we can say that was the year that you became the miracle worker as a head coach, because that particular year you became the head coach at South Iredell for the girls team. Yeah. They came off an 0-24 start. You came into South Iredell and you won 2 straight conference championships.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the people in South Iredell, they were looking at you like, wow, this guy is really, really good.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, that's the way they looked at it. I was Dean Smith all of a sudden, and, it wasn't anything I was doing. Again, I just took the principles that Eric and I, we believe in and applied them to girls. I didn't treat the girls, any different than I did the guys. My expectations were the same, holding kids accountable and changing the culture. But I saw that the girls had some really good players, and they just struggled on how to win. A lot of people really losing's easy, but winning's probably the hardest thing you'll ever have to do, because it requires changing a lot of stuff. And if you're not willing to change how you do things, you're not going to win. So, but yeah, I went in there to South and I got an opportunity to be a head coach and take a girls program, and was lucky enough to have a couple good players. Tiffany Whiting, nobody even knew about her, but I saw in her, she was like a guy out there playing. And so she ended up being, going to USC Upstate, being on the East-West All-Star game, and having a lot of opportunities to go to college. But, I just took a bunch of girls that were hungry and was willing to change and listen a little bit. And we just kind of changed the culture from there. So, but again, I enjoyed my time at South, because when I was at South, I also was the assistant boys coach for 3 years prior to the girls. And so I learned a lot there under Coach Gary Sherrill as well, and just kind of applied what I know about guys to girls, and it just kind of clicked. And yeah, we kind of won, and everybody thought I was Dean Smith or Coach K that had arrived, but that's not who I am. I just coach and try to put kids in the right spots, and it worked out.
You said something earlier when you were a freshman at Montreat, that when you didn't get the playing time and you asked what you had to do, and
Mm-hmm.
you took the effort to work on defense and you started playing like the 10th game in, to me, you sort of took that same principle that you learned as a player, you applied it as a coach, and you're inheriting a program that's 0-24.
Yeah.
And you take that program and you turn it around and win 2 straight conference championships. And you made the comment, losing's easy, winning's hard, but you got to make changes. And the other thing too is, you said earlier, as far as what you learned from Coach Boss, was he always believed in the players. And that's the one thing I've seen that you've done as a coach. And I've watched you coach at the travel ball level and also at Lincoln Charter. The one thing that you always do, you believe in your team, you believe in the players. I think that's why you've had such success everywhere you go.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, obviously you got to have decent players, but I think that's why kids, or I say kids, that's why athletes or guys or girls like playing for me, because I am hard, because my expectations are hard. I hold kids accountable. I hold myself accountable, but I let kids play. I let them be who they are. And, I've never seen a bad shot. I've never seen a bad turnover, except for Cody Schubert a couple times. But I just let kids play. And I have a belief in them. I've had kids shoot half-court shots consistently. I've even had coaches go, I can't believe you let your kids do that. And I'm like, well, why not? They can hit it. If they hit one, then they should be shooting that. So, I got that from Bill Balst, and I'll never change that. As long as I'm a coach, I always believe in kids. And I think it takes a special person to do that, because not everybody, a lot of coaches get into coaching to control things. I don't. I get into coaching to let kids to express themselves and be who they are, and kind of overcome a lot of things. A lot of people said Cody Schubert was too short to play Division I basketball. I had him believing that he was the best point guard, not in just North Carolina, but in the United States. And so whenever we walked into a gym, everybody said, well, Cody's cocky. And I said, no, Cody's confident. And because I instilled that into kids, to think that you're the best person ever. And so I think that's why kids like playing for me, and that's not tooting my own horn. That's just the way I coach. It's not for everybody, but it's always worked for me. And I always tell people, there's a difference between being competitive, which I am. I'm competitive at everything I do. That was the culture that we brought. But winning is the most important thing to me. Being competitive and winning is two different things. I'm a winner, and I'll tell people I'm a winner. And I expect our kids to be winners, and believing in them is part of winning. And, if they have that belief that they can do things, that carries over into real life application too. If they have a belief in they can finish college, or they can get that job, or I'm going to be a good husband, I'm going to be a good person, and all these things. So I just think it all kind of rolls into one big story.
Well, in 2007, you had an opportunity to go back to Bandys, but that was at the time you were the varsity girls coach at South Iredell. You was the assistant on the boys side. At that point in time, Coach Sherrill was retiring, so they offered you the coaching job on the boys team at South Iredell. And you told me earlier you took the job, and then you was offered the job at Bandy. So in the same day, you took the job, and then you also went back on it and said, I got to go back home to Bandys, which I don't think anyone can fault you for. But that was a tough decision.
It really was. I love South Iredell, and if I've always said if there's two places I would go back to if I ever left Lincoln Charter, which would be South Iredell and Hopewell. I've had opportunities to do both. I haven't pulled the trigger on either one of them, but that was a really tough time, because we had a really good boys team coming back. I probably could have pushed for a state championship that year, but I prayed about it with my wife, and was pressured a little bit from the community to come back and kind of resurrect our program. And again, I wouldn't recommend that for people. Again, go where it fits you. Going back to Bandys in 1989 or 90, that would have been a perfect spot for me because basketball was basketball. But going back and when I went back, Bandys had changed from a basketball school to a football school, and it was tough. It was tough to change that mindset of what Bandys used to be and trying to change it to something different. And so it was a tough decision, but I went back because I thought it was the right decision for myself and the community. And I thought if you would have asked me at the time, I would still be at Bandys High School right now. That was the plan. But things just didn't work out. It was tough going back home, having people stopping at your house on Sundays right when you got home from church to want to talk about basketball and who's doing this. Those are great things, but those are things that I felt like I couldn't go, to the grocery store without somebody wanting to stop me and talking. And, I was coaching my cousin, which was great. I got to coach Kyle Hauser, who's a wonderful athlete. But if I didn't coach him right, or if I did something wrong, then I'm probably letting my aunt down and my uncle. And I just didn't like all that stuff. And it just took away from the process of why I coach. And even though we made the playoffs 3 of the 4 years, it just wasn't a great fit. But it was a tough decision to leave South. And looking back now, if I had it to do over again, I probably wouldn't have done. I'd have stayed at South. But that's hindsight's 20/20. They always say, right?
Right. Well, after your stint at Bandys, you had a chance, and you coached at North. You was very successful there. But in 2012,
right,
you had an opportunity to go and be the head coach at Lincoln Charter. And since 2012, I want to make sure I have this right. You have gone 189 wins to only 39 losses. That's an 83% winning percentage, which is remarkable. You're in the 1A in the public school system. You've won 6 regional appearances. You've won 1 state championship. Again, the lessons you've learned along the way, whether it was from Coach Boss, Coach Matheson, Eric Davis along the way, you've been successful. What would you say in basically 3 bullet points? What's been the 3 key points to your success that you've enjoyed, especially at Lincoln Charter?
I think the first one is honestly, we create, and I learned this from Eric, and I honestly learned it from Coach Lutz, just talking to him, Bobby Lutz, over the years. I'm pretty tight with Bobby Lutz. Just one, creating a family atmosphere. We pride ourselves, and a lot of coaches do this, so I'm no different. But we tell each other we love each other all the time, and we mean it. I tell all my guys all the time, passing them in the hall. I told Anthony Davis as he was walking across Charlotte Motor Speedway, and we were supposed to be distancing, but he came up and gave me a hug, and I told him I loved him. That was my point guard this year. So we throw the word family and love around, and we really truly mean that. We create a family atmosphere, and with that comes, you're going to fight, you're going to argue, but you're going to respect each other. But at the end of the day, you're going to fight for each other, because family fights for each other. And then, we hold each other accountable. Accountability is big in our program and has always been big for me, and not just my players, but my coaches, myself, my athletic director, my principals, everybody in the community. We just hold each other accountable and whatnot. And then the last one is just be you. I mean, just be yourself. We have the ability, or I try to think I have the ability. If you're a good player, we want to make you great. If you're a great player, we want to make you exceptional. If you're an exceptional player, we want to make you special. Right. And so we kind of push those kids to kind of play above what they are. So, but we just be you. And I think that takes, that kind of wraps it up, and let's just go have fun. And yeah, I'm a yell, and yeah, I'm a laugh, and yeah, we're going to fight. And yeah. But at the end of the day, we're a family. We love each other. And the relationships we're building today are going to be forever. And we have a saying in our locker room that in 10,000 years from now, when we're all gathered around, we want to talk about these days in a positive manner and nothing negative. So we just create an atmosphere of things that are fun to be around, family atmosphere, accountability, and we just work our tails off. And we enjoy what we do. We love each other, and that's kind of, I've embraced that, and it's been part of our success. It's worked for me. It might not work for everyone, but that's kind of the way I approach everything. And I just love our kids. I love what we do. I love how we treat them. I love how they treat me. I hate to even say this, but this is probably some of the on Father's Day, I received the most text messages, and none of them were from my kids. On Father's Day the other day, which kind of meant a lot, which kind of tells you everything you need to know about our program. I received a lot of text messages just from past players saying, "Hey, Coach, I love you. Happy Father's Day." That's what it's about to me, and that's what we strive to do. And I don't do anything different than any other coach does, but that's worked for me. And surround yourself with good people and kids that want to play hard and are treated the right way. And a lot of people go, "Coach, how can you I see you on the sidelines, man. I saw you yelling at Cody Schubert, or I saw you yelling at Levante. How do you get away with that?" And I'm like, "You don't see what we do in the behind the scenes. I'm allowed to do that because they know I love them and they know what I do for them." So, and I never embarrass kids anyway when I yell. It's just it might look a little harsher than it is, but we've established a great relationship. But that's kind of who we are in our program. I think that's why we've had success, honestly.
Coach, you've had the opportunity to coach your son Jackson, and that's always going to be a double-edged sword as far as coaching your own kid. And, again, I've seen you coach a lot of games, and, in my point of view, you probably were harder on Jackson than anyone else.
Yeah.
And that's, and I know that's what you, maybe not intentionally done, but, you were always harder on him. Talk about the difficulty. I know there's a lot of rewards, but talk about the difficulty coaching your own son.
Yeah, it's if you've never coached your own son, which I know you have, so you kind of know what it's like. If you've never coached your son, first of all, I'm a coach first. So I have to separate being a coach and a dad all the time. Early on in Jackson's career, probably around his 8th grade, 9th grade year, I was really, really, really tough on him. I mean, he couldn't do anything right, and I thought I was doing the right thing. But I found myself coaching my son instead of coaching my player. And I had to step back, and my wife said, well, actually it was my mother-in-law, Jackson's grandma, that questioned me and said, "Well, I don't see you yelling at, or I don't see you saying this to, I don't see." And she was right. I got mad at the time, but she was right. I wasn't treating Jackson like I was everybody else. I was being his dad instead of his coach. So around his 9th grade year, about halfway through, I made a decision to be his coach instead of his dad.
Right.
And I was going to be his dad when we went and worked out and did skill development and give ideas then. But when I coached him, I was going to coach him just like I would anybody else. So it was difficult early on. As we got older into the process, his sophomore year, junior year, winning a state and all that, those things were special. But I was still his coach, and I really backed off of him a lot and just kind of sat back and enjoyed the process. I really didn't get to enjoy the team things that we got to enjoy, winning and all that stuff, the championships, because I was a coach and I was accountable, for 13, 14 other guys to be their coach as well. But all the individual stuff, the 1,000 point, the 1,500 points, the winning, hitting the most threes in North Carolina history, all those individual things I got to enjoy as a dad. I did take myself out of the coach, and was a dad at that point. But It was hard early on, like I said, because I didn't see that I was being his coach and I was being his dad, and that's not a good thing. You need to be a coach and then be a dad on the side. But some of the things I do regret, I started looking at film. I look at film all the time, but when I was watching film of when we played Winston-Salem Prep, who we played every year, and that's not easy. But the year we won the state championship, we played Winston-Salem Prep, and Jackson scored. He he had 25 points, played beautiful that night, hit some big shots, did some great things. And when we beat them, afterwards, I think every kid on my team hugged me but my own son. But I think I hugged everybody but my own son. And so looking back on those times like that, even the state championship game, I watched the film on that. When we won a state championship, I saw Cody Schubert hug his dad because he was my assistant. And I saw Chan Mayfield and Zeke Mayfield share a moment. But I never shared a moment with my own son because I was a coach. I was coach first and dad second. Those are things I kind of regret a little bit, but that's the double-edged sword that you got to walk when you're coaching your son. That's what I had to deal with all the time. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. I wouldn't do anything. I would do it over 1,000,000 times because the rides to the game, the talks after the game, the watching him hit a three and laugh and being a good teammate. Being a great kid, and some of the things that he did and how he did them, I'll never forget. And it was fun, but it is difficult to coach your own son,
right?
And I'm not sure that I would recommend that for a lot of people. But it's been enjoyable. I've loved it. I wouldn't take anything away from it. But it is a tough road to go down because when you're a coach and you're in coach mode, it's hard to get out of it and get in dad mode until it's too late. And so that's kind of my experience with it, but I enjoyed every moment of it.
Well, Coach, looking back in 2017, you won the state championship. That had to have been a special moment for you and Jackson. And you can look back on it now and go, you know what? You probably didn't realize how special it was at the time, but now you can look back and say, Jackson, you were an important part. You were an integral part of us winning the state championship. When you graduated, you became the state's all-time leading three-point shooter. You have to be very proud of Jackson.
Oh yeah, I mean, we just spoke yesterday about our state championship, and just talking about the memories and the after, going to. A lot of people don't know this, but after the game, I'm not a Carolina fan. I'm a Duke person. But after the game, we all went to Five Guys. I don't know how we ended up at Five Guys after a state championship game, but we did. And everyone at Carolina had just finished practice or something. Every one of their guys were in there. So they were all hanging out with us. We all had our medals on, and it was a pretty cool thing. We were talking about that yesterday. So the memories like that, Jackson played so beautiful. I mean, he played so great in the state championship game. I mean, he had 18 points in the first half, and then really kind of opened everything up for Cody and them in the second half because they put so much emphasis on Jackson that it opened up everything else. But just watching that, sharing those moments, and sharing the moment. Jackson's like me. We don't like to. I'm uncomfortable doing this right here, but if I can help kids or if I can help younger coaches understand that, you coach for the right reasons and you do the right things and you just give back. That's why I chose to come on here today. But Jackson's like me. He's not about individual success and all that stuff. So sharing that moment when he hit the shot that put him over made him become the all-time lead. Those things are special, and again, we talk about that today, and it was just a special moment for all of us, and something I'll never forget. And we don't take that for granted. We still wear our state championship rings, and we thought we was going to get back. We had everybody coming back his junior year, and every year we face Winston-Salem Prep, so. That's not an easy task. And you just don't ever know. And so we haven't been able to get back, partly because we run into Winston-Salem Prep every year. So it's either us or them, or somebody in the way, but we embraced it, we enjoyed it, and that's something that no one can ever take away from us. And we got some special moments and special pictures and all that stuff from those times. And he had a great career, and I was glad to be have front row watching him do everything, and I wouldn't take that for anything.
Well, Coach, going back to 1996 when you graduated from college and you started coaching out at youth travel ball, the little community of Bandys.
Yeah.
Look where you are today in the year 2020. And like I said before, Coach, you won a state championship. The memories you will have from that will last you a lifetime, especially that you were able to share it with your son, Jackson. That has to be really, really special. But again, since you've been at Lincoln Charter, you've won 83% of the games, and you're in the conversation as one of the best coaches in North Carolina. And what you've achieved in the last 8 years at Lincoln Charter is unprecedented. And I'm glad I was able for you to come on today to share your story. I don't think a lot of people knew that you were a two-sport star. You was all-state in football. You played collegiately. But the story that you told today is pretty impressive.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. Well, I appreciate you having me on. And again, I don't consider myself a top coach or anything like that. I that's just me. But if I can help coaches or young people or whatever, I think that's my calling is kind of to help young people, to help younger coaches, to understand that you have such a platform to make a difference in a kid's life, and we need to be a positive role model and believe in kids and believe in everything that they do and say and act and push them to be greater than they ever thought they could be. So I'm just honored to be a part of a little bit that I can give back and share my story and good, bad, or ugly, take it for what it is. And if I can make a difference in a kid's life or a young coach's life or anybody's, that's kind of why I'm coaching. That's why I'm in education. I think that's why I enjoy what I do. So I appreciate you having me on today.
Well, thank you. And I think the most important thing I got out of this is, as for young coaches out there that's listening, is number one, and you made it very clear, be yourself. And I think the other thing that a lot of people have to understand from it is you have to believe in your players. And if you just do that simple thing that you said you learned early on, the kids will run through a brick wall for you. And that's the way you were as a player. You wanted to make sure that as a player, you knew that your coach believed in you. You didn't want to let them down. And I think that's one of the biggest takeaways any coach, young coach, can get from watching this today. And I want to say thank you, Coach, for coming on.
Well, I appreciate it, and thank you, and good luck with everyone and all the kids out there. It's a rough time right now, but we're going to get through it. And basketball, sports, life as we knew it, it's going to be different, but it's going to get back. And don't ever take sports or your life or anything for granted, because it can change in a blink of an eye, just like we've been forced to for the last 4 or 5, 6 months to deal with. So I appreciate you, and thank you for all that you do for our kids and for us coaches, and we are grateful to have somebody like you to give us a platform to share these stories with. So I salute you and say thank you very much.
Thank you, Coach. Appreciate it.
All right.